Eleanor Parker's house nestled in the quiet suburbs of Green Hills, Maine, basked in the soft light of spring. She stood by the window, smiling warmly as a little girl tended to the rose bushes. "Emily, be careful not to water them too much. Which city are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. And hey, make sure you watch till the end. Something's going to happen that you won't see coming," she called out. Her 7-year-old granddaughter turned at the sound of her voice, beaming with innocence and joy. "It's okay, Grandma. The roses are thirsty." Eleanor had spent 25 years as the research director at Hartley Pharmaceuticals, and even after retirement, she still consulted at the office 2 days a week. Her expertise was sought after, and her work had afforded her financial comfort and independence. She stepped outside and sat beside Emily. "So, what shall we play today? I want to do science experiments. I want to make that water soap-like last time," Emily exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. Eleanor adored weekends with her granddaughter. Whether they were cooking, gardening, or doing simple science experiments, their time was always filled with joy, learning, and laughter. "That sounds like fun," Eleanor said with a chuckle. "But before that, there's a message from your mom." She pulled out her smartphone and read aloud a message from her daughter, Lauren. "Mom, is it okay if I pick up Emily at p.m.? Mark and I have an important meeting." Eleanor let out a soft sigh. Lauren, a manager at a marketing firm, was always busy, and she often relied on Eleanor to care for Emily. Mark Palmer, whom Lauren had married 3 years ago, also seemed constantly preoccupied, though Eleanor still wasn't sure what his actual job was. "Is Mom going to be late again?" Emily asked, a hint of sadness in her voice. "It seems like it, sweetheart, but she has important work to do," Eleanor replied gently, brushing Emily's hair from her forehead. "Tell you what, I'll bake you special chocolate chip cookies tonight." Emily's face lit up. Eleanor treasured that smile more than anything. Lauren's first marriage had ended shortly after Emily was born, and Emily's biological father had moved abroad. He rarely reached out. To fill that void, Eleanor built a close, loving bond with her granddaughter, something she cherished deeply. Suddenly, Eleanor's phone rang. It was Lauren. "Mom, I have something important to tell you." Lauren's voice was unusually excited. "Next week, we want to celebrate your 60th birthday in a grand way. Mark is planning a beautiful dinner." Eleanor frowned. She preferred quiet time with close family over elaborate celebrations. "Lauren, there's really no need to go overboard. A simple dinner would be more than enough." "No way, Mom. This is a big day," Lauren insisted passionately. "I want to show you how grateful I am for everything." In the background, Eleanor heard Mark's voice. "Don't worry, Eleanor. I've arranged the best chef. We'll even have your favorite seafood risotto." Eleanor's stomach twisted slightly. Mark's excessive kindness always gave her pause, but her daughter's excitement was hard to ignore. "All right, Lauren. I'll look forward to it," she said with a small smile. After ending the call, Eleanor glanced outside at Emily, who was still sitting on the lawn. "Emily, what's wrong?" "Nothing," the girl replied, suddenly flashing a bright smile. "I'm just excited for your birthday." There was something off in her tone, but Eleanor brushed it off as a child's quirk. "Well then," she said cheerfully, "shall we get to our science experiment?" The rest of the day passed delightfully. The soap-making experiment was a success, and Emily proudly held the lavender-scented soap she had crafted. "It's a present for Mom," she said at dusk. When Lauren came to pick her up, Emily packed up her things reluctantly. She gave Eleanor a tighter than usual hug. "See you next week, Grandma." Her voice carried a strange urgency. As Eleanor watched her leave, she began preparing for next week's birthday celebration. On the morning of her birthday, Eleanor awoke with a calm, peaceful feeling. Despite her preference for a quiet day, she chose to respect Lauren's enthusiasm. She slipped into an elegant navy blue dress and prepared herself for the evening ahead. By 5 p.m. Eleanor arrived at Lauren and Mark's home. The upscale 2-story house in their polished neighborhood was decorated more extravagantly than usual. Glittering ribbons adorned the door, and a large sign read, "Happy 60th birthday, Eleanor." "Mom, thank you for coming," Lauren greeted her at the door with a warm kiss on the cheek. "Today is a very special day." Inside, the living room was decked out with balloons, floral arrangements, and a table filled with fine wines and Eleanor's favorite cheese platter. Mark stood near the fireplace, his demeanor unusually warm. Eleanor, happy birthday, he said, stepping forward and giving her a hug that felt a little too staged. Today's all about you. I opened something special just for the occasion. He presented an expensive-looking wine bottle from the table. This is a 2005 Chateau Margaux, the finest wine for the finest lady. Eleanor accepted the glass with a polite smile. Thank you, Mark, but you didn't need to go so far. Nonsense, he replied with a broad grin. Tonight is about celebrating you. Cheers to your health and happiness. Their glasses clinked, and Eleanor took a sip. The wine tasted excellent, but something about Mark's exaggerated attentiveness made her uneasy. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. There was something cold hiding behind it. Where's Emily? Eleanor asked, glancing around. She's getting changed upstairs, Lauren said. She'll be down soon. Why don't you take a seat, Mom? I still need to finish up a few things in the kitchen. Mark will keep you company. As Lauren disappeared behind the kitchen door, Mark sat down beside Eleanor and topped off her glass. So, he began, how's retirement treating you? I'm enjoying it. I still go to the office twice a week, but otherwise, I spend my time how I want. Sounds amazing. I'd love to hear your thoughts on asset management sometime, Mark added, flashing a knowing smile. Lauren tells me, you're a smart investor. Eleanor smiled politely and steered the conversation elsewhere. How's Emily doing in school? All she talks about is science experiments lately. She must get that from you, he said with a chuckle. As he reached to pour more wine, Eleanor subtly declined. That's enough for now, we haven't even started dinner. Relax, Mark said, his tone a bit sharper this time. Tonight's a special night. Just then, they heard the sound of light footsteps on the stairs. Emily appeared, wearing a pale blue dress decorated with tiny flowers. But her face wasn't its usual cheerful self. Her eyes were red, and her expression distant. Emily, say hello to your grandmother, Mark said. Emily walked slowly toward Eleanor. Happy birthday, Grandma. Her voice was soft, almost lifeless, concerned. Eleanor touched her forehead. Sweetheart, are you feeling okay? I'm fine, Grandma. Just a little tired, Emily replied, forcing a smile. But Eleanor knew something wasn't right. Emily was usually bubbly and talkative around her, but today, she seemed like a different child. Emily, can you help your uncle with something? Mark called. Emily hesitated, then slowly moved toward him. In the corner of the room, Mark leaned down and whispered something to her. Her shoulders stiffened as she nodded nervously. Lauren returned from the kitchen. Mom, let's head to the dining room. Dinner's almost ready. As Eleanor rose, Lauren gently took her mother's arm. Tonight is about you, Mom. It's our way of saying thank you. Though touched by her daughter's words, Eleanor couldn't shake the unease that lingered. She glanced at Emily, who remained quietly seated at the edge of the sofa, her eyes locked on her grandmother with a strange intensity. There was fear in her gaze. In the dining room, Eleanor was struck by the display of food. It was a feast: roast beef, green salad, and in the center, a stunning dish of seafood risotto. All my favorites, Eleanor said, visibly surprised. Of course, Mom. Everything tonight is just for you, Lauren said cheerfully. Mark approached, standing proudly beside the risotto. This dish is the star tonight. I had the chef make it especially for you. Eleanor's heart began to flutter again, unease blooming in her chest. Thank you, Mark, she said cautiously. As he poured more wine, Mark added, this risotto is tonight's main event. Lauren told me it's your favorite. Emily walked to the dining table and quietly took a seat beside her grandmother. She leaned in and whispered softly, Grandma. Before Eleanor could ask anything, Lauren raised her glass. Everyone, I'd like to say a few words. Tears shimmered in her eyes as she turned to Eleanor. Mom, you gave me life. You raised me. You supported me. And tonight, I want to honor you for all that. Eleanor's heart swelled with emotion. Hearing her daughter's gratitude was deeply moving, but even through the sentiment, the tension in the room was impossible to ignore. Emily's strange behavior, Mark's over-the-top kindness, and now, this unsettling atmosphere. Well, Mark interrupted. Let's dig in before the food gets cold, especially this risotto. I had it made just for Eleanor. Eleanor sat down, and Emily gently tugged on her sleeve. When Eleanor looked over, Emily tried to say something, but instantly froze under Mark's stern gaze. Let's make a toast. Mark stood and raised his glass to Eleanor's 60 years and to many more wonderful years ahead. Glasses clinked again. Mom, Lauren said, voice shaking with emotion. Thank you for giving me life, for raising me, for always being there. Eleanor smiled, her chest aching with love and confusion. Thank you, Lauren. Mark chimed in again. Now, let's enjoy that seafood risotto. With a dramatic flair, he served the dish onto Eleanor's plate. This serving is just for you, Eleanor, he said proudly. The risotto looked beautiful: scallops, shrimp, saffron. Everything seemed perfect. But the unease in Eleanor's chest returned stronger. Thank you, Mark. It looks lovely. He began serving the same dish to others. Everyone's getting the same, he said, but Eleanor's has a special recipe. At that, Eleanor noticed something: Emily's small body trembling beside her. She wasn't touching her food. She was staring at her grandmother's plate in terror. Eleanor picked up her fork and was about to take a bite when something touched her leg under the table. Startled, she looked down. It was Emily. The little girl had crawled beneath the tablecloth, inching toward Eleanor without drawing attention. Startled but composed, Eleanor pretended to drop her napkin. Oh, I dropped my napkin, she said calmly, and bent down. Under the table, Emily slipped a small folded note into her grandmother's hand. Her eyes were wide, scared, and determined. Eleanor took the note and slipped it discreetly into the pocket of her dress. You okay, Mom? Lauren asked casually. Yes, just retrieving my napkin, Eleanor replied, sitting back up. Mark leaned forward eagerly. Come on, Eleanor. Try the risotto while it's still hot. Emily had returned to her seat, but she never stopped watching her grandmother. Her eyes were pleading, desperate. Eleanor slid her hand into her pocket and gently unfolded the small note. It was written in a child's shaky handwriting. Just 5 words. Run away now. Please, Grandma. Her heart pounded. Her hands trembled slightly. What could it mean? Was this a joke, or was there real danger? One look at Emily's grave, tear-brimmed eyes gave Eleanor the answer. This was not a prank. Mark's voice interrupted her thoughts again. Come on, Eleanor. Just a bite. His tone was cheerful, but his eyes locked tightly on her movements. Eleanor picked up the fork again and slowly scooped up a bite of the risotto. But before lifting it to her mouth, she glanced again at Emily. The girl subtly but clearly shook her head. Then it all clicked. Mark's excessive kindness, the specially prepared dish, Emily's fear, the chilling note. A wave of dread swept over Eleanor. She put down her fork. I'm feeling a bit short of breath, she said softly. Lauren looked up with concern. Mom, are you okay? I just need to take a quick break. I'll be right back. Eleanor stood up slowly. Her voice remained calm, though her insides were in turmoil. Mark frowned for a moment. But the food will get cold. That risotto was made just for you. Don't worry. I'll only be a minute, Eleanor assured, walking toward the hallway. I'll come with you, Lauren offered, starting to stand. No, it's fine. I can manage, Eleanor said firmly. Her eyes met Lauren's, and her voice softened. You stay. Enjoy the evening. It's your party too. Lauren hesitated, then sat back down. Eleanor turned and headed toward the bathroom, but she didn't stop there. Once around the corner and out of sight, she changed course and made a beeline for the kitchen. Her instincts were screaming. Emily's note was no small thing. There had to be something that would confirm the truth. In the kitchen, Eleanor quickly scanned the area. The counters were cluttered with utensils, ingredients, and dishes used during preparation. Then she spotted Mark's jacket, hanging carelessly over a chair near the sink. With a pounding heart, Eleanor reached into the pockets. First she found a small medicine bottle. The label said gastrointestinal relief, but her years in pharmaceutical research told her this wasn't any common medication. She opened it carefully. The powder inside looked too refined, too controlled. Next she found folded papers. Opening them, she nearly dropped them in shock. They were copies of her life insurance policy. One of them had been altered. The beneficiary had been changed from Lauren to Mark. The signature looked forged. Eleanor's hands shook. Her heart raced. In another pocket, she found Mark's smartphone. It was locked, but some notifications were visible on the screen. One read, Reminder, drug effects in 6 hours. Natural-looking death. Everything fell into place. The wine, the risotto, the kindness, the timing. Mark was trying to kill her for her insurance money. Suddenly, the kitchen door creaked open. Eleanor shoved the phone and papers back into the jacket pocket and turned just in time to see Mark entering. His face was no longer smiling. His tone was sharp. What are you doing? Eleanor kept her voice steady. I felt a little dizzy. Was just looking for some medicine. Mark's eyes narrowed. In the kitchen? Why not the bathroom? Lauren once mentioned she kept her headache pills in the kitchen drawer. Eleanor replied smoothly. Mark slowly stepped closer. Well, everything you need tonight has already been prepared. There was a strange finality in his voice. Something chilling. Thanks, Mark, Eleanor said, forcing a smile. But her brain was in full survival mode now. She had to get out, and she had to protect Emily. Mark reached for her arm, gripping it tightly. You're our guest of honor tonight. You shouldn't be walking around alone. Let me walk you back. His hand squeezed harder than necessary. Eleanor didn't flinch. I'd like a moment of fresh air first, she said calmly. That always clears my head. Mark's eyes narrowed, suspicion creeping in. All right, but don't take too long. Lauren put a lot into this party. Eleanor gently freed herself from his grip and turned toward the back door. Her mind was spinning with a plan. Emily had saved her. Now it was her turn to save Emily. Walking briskly through the hallway, Eleanor focused on one thing: getting Emily to safety. She didn't head to the dining room. She turned toward the bathroom, locking the door behind her the moment she entered. Her hands were trembling as she reached into her pocket and pulled out Mark's phone. It was still locked, but she had enough: the bottle, the policy, the note, and the notifications. That was all the evidence she needed. Taking a deep breath, she pulled out her own phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? The operator answered. Eleanor kept her voice low but firm. My name is Eleanor Parker. My daughter's husband is trying to poison me. The address is 215 Oakwood Drive, Green Hills, Maine. Are you safe at the moment? The operator asked. I'm locked in the bathroom, but I believe my granddaughter is also in danger. I have evidence. Please hurry. Officers are en route. Stay on the line if you can. Eleanor quickly snapped photos of the altered insurance documents, the medicine bottle, and the notification on Mark's phone screen. She sent them to the police dispatcher's secure number. When she ended the call, she leaned her ear against the door. Silence. And no footsteps. No voices. She cracked the door open and peeked into the hallway. Still clear. She stepped out cautiously, her heart thumping against her ribcage. She had to find Emily. Returning to the dining room was too dangerous. Instead, she moved toward the stairs, hoping Emily had slipped away upstairs. But just as she reached the staircase, she heard soft footsteps from behind. She turned and saw Emily standing there. The little girl's eyes were filled with tears. Grandma, she whispered. Eleanor rushed forward and embraced her tightly, pulling her into the shadows beneath the staircase. It's okay, sweetheart. I got your note. I've called the police, Eleanor whispered. Emily clutched her tightly. Uncle Mark is planning something bad. I heard him on the phone. What did he say? Eleanor asked gently. He said, tonight's the last chance. And I saw him put powder in your food. Emily was shaking. Eleanor held her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. You were so brave. You saved my life, Emily. Just then, a voice echoed from the living room. Emily, where are you? It was Lauren. Eleanor gave Emily's shoulders a light squeeze. Listen to me carefully. Go out the back door. Wait for the police. I need to talk to your mom. Emily nodded, eyes wide with fear, but did as told. She slipped toward the kitchen and out the back door quietly. Eleanor gathered her resolve and walked toward the living room. Lauren was standing alone, looking confused. Mom, what's going on? Mark's been acting so strange and keeps asking where you went. Eleanor walked straight to her daughter and took her by the hand. Lauren, sit down. I have to tell you something serious. They sat on the sofa. Eleanor spoke in a low but firm voice. Mark is trying to kill me. Lauren froze. What? Mom, I found my life insurance paperwork in his jacket. It's been altered. The beneficiary was changed from you to him. Eleanor pulled out her phone and showed the photos she'd taken. He also drugged my food. Emily saw it happen. Lauren's face turned white. She covered her mouth in disbelief. I don't believe this. I had no idea. There's also a note on his phone reminding him the drug takes 6 hours to look like a natural death. Tears welled up in Lauren's eyes. I'm so sorry, Mom. I had no idea he would suddenly. Mark's voice rang out from the dining room. Lauren, did you find Eleanor? A moment later, he entered the living room. His confident expression wavered when he saw the two of them sitting side by side, serious, but he quickly recovered and put on his usual smile. Ah, there you are. Everyone's worried. The risotto's getting cold. Eleanor stood up and faced him calmly. Mark, I've contacted the police. He blinked. What are you talking about? You tried to poison me. I have proof. And the police are on their way. His expression snapped. Panic surged in his eyes. Without another word, he spun around and bolted for the front door. But just then the sound of sirens pierced the air. Red and blue lights flashed outside the windows. Mark stopped at the door and peeked out. Police cars. Multiple. It's a lie, he muttered. Eleanor stood firm. That child saved my life. Lauren stepped forward, voice trembling with fury. Why would you do this? Mark turned slowly. His face twisted into a bitter smile. For the money, Lauren. Your mother's life insurance was a fortune. Once she was gone, you'd inherit everything. We'd be set. You and I. Lauren's voice cracked with rage. You tried to kill my mother. A knock boomed at the door. Police? Open the door. Mark backed away. But it was too late. Officers were already surrounding the house. He turned toward the window, but even their police were waiting in the yard. Defeated, he slumped to the floor in resignation. At that moment, Emily entered with the officers. She ran straight to her grandmother and threw her arms around her. Grandma, are you okay? Eleanor knelt down and held her close. Yes, sweetheart. Because of you, I'm okay. Lauren joined them, and the three embraced tightly. 6 months later, the crisp air of fall danced through Eleanor's backyard, rustling the golden leaves scattered across the grass. She sat on the porch, sipping warm coffee, her eyes following Emily, who was playing joyfully on the lawn. The investigation after that night had unraveled everything. Mark Palmer's past was darker than anyone had known. Authorities uncovered that he had been a suspect in a similar case years ago in another state but had slipped through the cracks due to insufficient evidence. The drug recovered from Eleanor's home turned out to be a rare cardiac poison, one that mimicked the symptoms of natural death. It had been sourced from a former colleague of Mark's with access to controlled substances. Thanks to the concrete evidence Eleanor had gathered, photos, documents, and witness testimony, Mark's trial was brief. He was sentenced to a lengthy prison term. Lauren had visited him once after the trial. During that meeting, Mark looked her in the eye and coldly said, "It was only for the money. You and that child were always in the way." Those words shattered what little was left of Lauren's heart. In the months that followed, Lauren and Emily moved into Eleanor's home. The warmth of their once fractured family began to heal slowly, day by day. Lauren finalized the divorce and found a new job at a small local publishing company. The fear and betrayal she had endured took time to process, but with therapy, support, and her mother by her side, her smile had gradually returned. Emily, too, began attending counseling once a week. During those sessions, she often opened up about the terrifying things she had seen and heard. "I saw Uncle Mark put some weird powder in the food," she had confessed to the counselor. "He was making a special dish for Grandma and said tonight is the last chance on the phone." Despite everything, her counselor was amazed at her courage. "I'm really happy I could protect Grandma," she would say proudly. Back on the porch, Eleanor sat reflecting on all that had happened. "What are you thinking about?" Lauren asked gently, walking out with 2 mugs of tea. Eleanor smiled faintly as her daughter sat beside her. "Just thinking how lucky we are." She looked back toward Emily, who was now gathering leaves into a pile with unmatched energy. "Thanks to her." Lauren let out a soft, heavy sigh. "She really is a special child, Mom. When I think about how I almost lost you both." Her voice trembled, and Eleanor gently placed a hand on hers. "We can't change what happened," Eleanor said softly. "But from now on, we create new memories. Safer, happier ones." They sat there in silence for a while, grateful, grounded, and stronger than they'd ever been. 1 year later, it was Eleanor's birthday again, but this time, there were no chefs, no lavish decorations, and no expensive wine. Just the soft glow of candles on a homemade cake in her cozy living room. Lauren, Emily, and Eleanor sat together, 3 generations, one bond, stronger than ever. "Grandma, this is for you," Emily said, holding out a small envelope. Eleanor opened it slowly. Inside was a handmade card with uneven handwriting and crooked stars drawn around the border. "I love you, Grandma. Let's always be together." Tears filled Eleanor's eyes as she hugged her granddaughter tightly. "We are a true family, Emily, bound not just by blood but by love, truth, and trust." Lauren joined the embrace, wrapping her arms around them both. The warmth between them filled the room more deeply than any party ever could. Far away, in a prison cell, Mark Palmer spent his days in silence. No visitors, no phone calls, Nothing but the weight of his own greed and regret. The life he had tried to steal was never his to begin with. He had underestimated what true richness looked like, because the real treasure was never money. It was what Eleanor, Lauren, and Emily now had in abundance: unbreakable trust, undeniable love, and the strength to begin again. As Eleanor blew out the candles on her simple birthday cake, she didn't wish for anything. She already had everything that mattered, and in that quiet, glowing room, a new chapter began, not out of fear, but out of faith in each other.